Welcome to all of our group members. My name is Kent Clothier. This is our Facebook Zoom live call with our Facebook group, and we welcome everybody today. Just went past 1,000 members yesterday on our group, and it's growing rather quickly. So between Chris and I, we hope to bring you guys a lot of good content, other people that are participating also with videos and interviews and good content. But I know one today that's real important to a lot of people in our group, and that's property management. And I didn't tell anybody who was going to be on with me today, so I made it a surprise. And so Nate Gray, who's been with us for 13 years, runs our property management side of our business with the help of a lot of really good people. Nate is stationed here in Memphis and manages the 6,200 plus properties that we have, plus oversees our customer service department. That's a direct link to Premier. So we'll get into talking a little bit about that, and we're going to spend some time talking about the ins and outs and the do's and don'ts of property management today. And I kind of surprised Nate a little bit. He didn't know we were going to do this till about an hour ago. So, but he doesn't need to prepare. He's got 13 years. So he knows this stuff like the back of his hand. So Nate, tell us a little bit about you and your background, and then we'll get into some questions and some discussion.
Oh, okay. So my background, I started here in 2008. I have known the Clothier family for a long time. I grew up with the youngest son of Kent, Brett. We went to college together. We were friends in high school. We played Little League baseball together, all that good stuff. I was on the opposite team in Little League baseball. I played for the Giants, and Kent coached the Mariners. And the parents used to talk about the third base coach all the time. Who was that intense guy that's always on volume 10 talking to the Little League players, and just so happened to turn out to be this guy right here. So I played baseball with Brett when I was young, grew up with them. They were a home away from home, treated me as their own. Went to high school with Brett. Then we ended up being freshman roommates in college. Right out of college, I actually taught high school for a year. I did this thing called the Mississippi Teacher Corps, taught high school, and then rekindled with Brett and talked to them, and brought me on to work the January of 2008, and the rest is history. Been here on my 13th year now. I run the property management and customer service divisions in all 7 of our cities, and have a great team that does the majority of the work that I cannot take credit for. We've got an awesome team of people that handle everything day in and day out and just do a fantastic job and make me look really good. So that's the background.
By the way, I think you won every one of those games too.
We were up there.
So, all right. So we're going to talk about, I know that's something that our listeners are very interested in, is the property management side of real estate investing. And we brought you in 13 years ago. You and I spent a lot of time riding around, talking, developing this property management side of the business that when we first started many, many years ago, we weren't very good at it. And under your leadership today, I think we're really good at it. And it's a proud part of our business that, you got a great team of people, like you said, that works in there, not only in the property management side of it, and the customer service side in 7 cities. And it's a big machine here in the property management side. But I want to get into some of the important things for our listeners. On the call, we always have existing clients. We have probably some industry veterans on here, and we probably have some people that are looking for guidance and want to learn about whether it's to start a business or whether it's to get in real estate investing or whatever. So we have a pretty good mix of people that are in this Facebook group with REI. So with that in mind, let me fire away a couple questions at you, and then we'll go in there. And we may get some questions from our listeners, which is great. But I do have a few, and you and I have been over these over the years. But I think it's going to be important for them to hear some of this thing from you.
Sure.
So in a property management business, and in our company, the most important job in the property management business, and we've talked about this since day one. We talk about it unbelievable times a day or a month or a year when we have our teams together, and we talk about not only in property management, what the most important job in our company is. And when you look at that, and we talk about whether it's buying houses or selling houses or IT or customer service or rehabbing houses or all of the jobs that we do, it all comes back to one job in our company that every one of our people will tell you is the most important job in our company. And what is that, Nate?
Renting houses.
Renting houses. And there is nothing more important to us than renting houses. And without renting houses for our investors and creating the return that they expect, then we're not here today. And all of our people and the culture that we have in our company, and this renting houses is embedded in there. And just as a side note, today, Nate oversees 6,200 properties, and as of about 1 o'clock today, we had 47 vacancies across 7 cities, which if you do the math on that, that's a pretty amazing number. I think that's, Nate, is that over 99%, something in there? So
Right.
It's a pretty amazing number of what we have today available to rent. And we have a few move outs every month and they come back in there, but Nate's department rents about 150 houses a month through the 7 cities. Nate, talk about the importance of licensing on property management.
Sure. So we obviously we're in 7 different cities and 5 or 6 different states, and we hold the proper licensing requirements in each of those states. I'm a broker in the state of Tennessee and the state of Missouri. Ryan, who oversees our Texas operations and those other markets, he is a broker in multiple states, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Mississippi, and he's also licensed in Tennessee and Missouri as well. So we hold the proper licensing. It's important in the property management business, unless it's, a mom and pop who own their own properties and they're managing the properties themselves. It's important that you're working with and you have a property manager who is properly licensed by that state's real estate commission. So we hold all those. And on top of that, you have continuing education that you have to stay up with. The laws are changing. The commission is heavily embedded in each state and handles the rules and guidelines and laws that property managers, as well as real estate agents and any real estate professionals, have to handle and abide by. So it's an important thing to always make sure that your property manager is properly licensed, not only for the expertise side of it, but for, liability and insurance purposes, fully licensed, insured, bonded, all of those things. And that's something that we, to a T, make sure that we keep up with and abide by.
Nate, what is my risk as a real estate investor if I'm with a property management company that's not properly licensed, or their license has expired, or I didn't renew it, or I just don't have a license? What is my risk as an investor?
Well, technically, unless you're the owner of a property, you're not supposed to be managing as a third party in between a resident, a tenant, and a property owner. You're supposed to be licensed. That is, again, each state has some differences in their requirements, but overall, in most states that we operate in, at least, it is a requirement that you hold a license to be a third-party property manager.
Thank you, Nate. So that's, for our folks on the call, that's probably one of the most important things. And I just want to get that one up front because I get asked that question a lot over the years about property management and licensed companies and so on and so forth. So that's, again, that's something that we do. We have our licenses on the wall, and our licensed people, their licenses on the wall. That's just something that you just might, that's one of the questions that you might want to ask as you contemplate property management companies for your investment in whatever city that you may be in. Nate, let's talk for a second about first of all, let's talk about houses. How do we market our houses, the ones that we have available today to rent? Then I want to get into how we set the pricing. Then I want to talk about the application process, and a little bit about the operation of a property management company. Will you talk for a second about houses and marketing and
Sure.
such, please?
Yeah. So Premier Property Management is sister company to REI Nation, owned and operated and managed by the same folks and all the above, but kind of two separate entities. So we're fed properties from REI Nation, and then we also have our own properties that we've turned or had move outs, and they're put back on the market. So at any given time, all of those number of available properties are going to be from either one of those pools. But for marketing purposes, you name it, we've done it. You name it, we likely still do it. The biggest form of lead generation for us, believe it or not, is still going to be an old school sign in the yard. We have 3 signs that we use, or 2 signs that we use. We're a different type of company. We do a lot of different things, as you've heard on these sessions in the past. We're just different. So we stick 2 signs or 3 signs in a yard. One is, our company name, the management company, the phone number, and then we've got a call now sign or something, just something to make us stand out and be different from that other property across the street that just has 1 sign, for example. So still the biggest form of lead generation in most of our cities. It fluctuates in different markets, but it's going to be that old school sign in the yard. So we're doing that. We advertise online. So we have our own website that we publish our properties to. Our properties from there. It's through the property management software that we use. From there, they syndicate out to all of the other websites that most people know of and use. However, we recently changed a few of those. We're testing it, especially with our lower number of availability. But websites, online, Craigslist, we've done it, we've used it. Newspaper, we've done it, we've used it. We've had radio commercials in the past. So again, you name it, we've done it. But the 2 main things are those signs in the yard and then online advertising as usual. But the biggest thing is word of mouth and referrals from our current residents and other folks talking about us to their friends, to their family, offering referral credits to them. If you've had a great experience, the best thing that you can do, and the biggest accomplishment for us and compliment for us, is to refer us to your friends and family. So that's also a big aspect of it as well.
Very good. Let me just jump in and remind all of our listeners, and we have a lot of people on that right now listening, that you hit the like button or the love button, and or send us a comment or a question, and Nate or I will answer the question. Nate, what about so our houses then are on our website now? Obviously, they don't last very long because they go very quickly.
Right.
How do you come about setting the rent prices that we have in our cities? How do you go about doing that?
So a lot of ways. We're looking at comparable sales and comparable rentals. Number one, we research what our competition is listing for. I mean, it's easy to find everybody else's listings as well. And that's something that we're obviously aware of. There is a system, Rentometer, that we use. It's basically a software where you input an address and it pulls all of these other listings in and can show and give you what the average asking amount is. But the kicker on that is the asking amount. So the difference between rentals and sales, when you pull comps for sales, you get an actual sales price. When you pull comparables for rentals, you're getting listings. So it's not regulated or required that somebody puts in what the actual rented amount is compared to somebody puts in, an agent must put in the actual sales amount. So just buyer beware when you're looking at those websites. But so we're using data across different search engines, but our biggest thing, and Ken, you know this, is again, we've got over 6,200 properties in these cities. We usually know what a property can and will rent for. Right now, we've been seeing demand go up and supply go down. So we're trying to push those up, and we're having success in doing so. So we're taking a myriad of all these things where we're looking at the current market, other listings, our other comparable listings that we know houses rented at, and 98% of the time we're able to hit within that set rent range. Very rarely, and sometimes it happens, will we say, I think a house will rent for this, and we hit it at this. It happens more so often that we hit it at this when we thought it would only rent at this. So we've got all those things that we're looking at and setting those ranges, and we're very successful in renting them within that range.
Again, I would just comment to all of the people on the call that this is what Nate's talking about here is really, really good information for investors on how we go about doing this process of renting houses. And now we're to the point here of discussing about, now we have somebody interested in the house and we have an application of a possible resident. And I'll just say this about, we changed our terminology a long time ago from a tenant to a resident. And again, we do things a little bit differently. And we talk about the quality of the experience that we want the resident to have with us. So we took the word tenant out of there because it's a word that's used a lot. There's nothing wrong with the word. We just think the word resident is a little bit more formal when we're talking to a person about a property, about a house, other than maybe an apartment. So we go back to resident. So now, Nate, we're up to the point where we have somebody that's called and we showed them the house, and our agent is trained to walk them through and show them the highlights of the house, on and on and on. And we have a whole training program for showing the house and answering the phone, by the way, and things that we say on the phone to a potential resident about renting our house. We have a whole scripted and training sessions that Nate does with all of our agents about how to answer the phone, how quick to answer the phone, how to set up a showing, how to confirm a showing. So I'm going to kind of bypass all of that here, but that is really, really an important part of the process. And then we get to the point, Nate, that we have somebody interested in the house right now that would like to formally apply for it and make an application fee and potentially put up a deposit. Will you take us through that process, sir?
Yeah. So, and I mean, going back to what Ken was talking about, we have a fantastic rental team, a team of folks who handle all of that, and they do a fantastic job of getting numerous prospects and people that are interested and phone calls coming in and all of the above filtered down and whittled down to, an actual interested applicant. So from there, the applicant goes online, applies. Everything is 100% online through our website, where basically they enter the information, submit their application, submit their paperwork required, follow through those qualifications and guidelines. essentially like a rocket mortgage type of thing. You go online and you can apply for a mortgage right then and there. Same concept for applying for a property with us. From there, our team of credit counselors and application screeners go through there, screen the applications. We're looking at certain requirements. We have a baseline. We have a list of qualifications. Nothing is ever 100% set in stone. You have those qualifications listed out, and then from there, different factors come into play. So, I mean, we're processing multiple applications every day, every week. Those are whittled down into the prospects that actually pass those qualifications, meet the requirements at hand, and then ultimately we'll submit that deposit, a holding deposit for the property related to an earnest money payment for a regular type of real estate transaction. And then we go from there. So once that process is done, we've got them approved and ready to sign the lease and move in, and we get those dates and all that information. We do all of that as well. Virtual, we have a closing process that we go through, have the phone call, have the lease documents sent to them electronically. We still have a personal touch where we're going through each requirement and detail of every lease, talking about our processes, protocols, what to expect, how to reach us, how to report something at this time, and going through every step very meticulously on each lease closing that we perform. So again, you said a big well-oiled machine to the tune of around 150 of those each month in all 7 cities.
Nate, let me go back just for a second on the application process. So we're verifying employment,
Yep.
VOE, and that is a call, or is that a written document that we get back from their employer?
Both. It depends. So employment, proof of employment is going to both. You're going to get employment overall. We're looking at 2 things. It's going to be income and then length of employment, or what is the status of employment. Just because somebody's only been on their job for 2 months doesn't mean that they didn't just leave a previous job for a better opportunity or got promoted or this or that. So there's lots of meticulous details. And I mean, you're being a detective, and you have to put that hat on and ask the tough questions. So VOE, verification of employment, is going to include income verification and then digging and diving deeper on employment, length of employment, all of those things.
And then we're looking for occasionally, or we're getting paycheck stubs. We have a credit check. We're doing a verification of where they lived before.
Correct.
Because we're bringing this resident in, and our typical resident is 2 years. Is that correct, Nate?
Correct.
So our leases are 2-year leases. Very, very rarely will we do less than that. It's probably 3 or 4 a month out of 150 that would be less than 2 years.
Right.
And what percent of the time, Nate, are we getting an increase in that second year?
Usually over 90% of the time, we're able to get a bump in the rent for the second year.
And that's a big deal for our investors. And when we're talking to our investors and we're talking to them about properties, they love that part of it, because now today, I think it's kind of commonplace out there that a lot of people are doing what we did. But when we first started in this business, Nate, if you remember, a lot of our competition laughed at us when we told us that we would never get 1-year lease, or excuse me, a 2-year lease, which we do today all the time. And then we'll get to the renewals in a second. So now we have the resident, we have them approved, and we're moving towards a closing, which could be a week or 2 weeks or even a month, right?
Yeah, typically we'll say that we'll hold the property for 2 to 3 weeks. I mean, we don't want it to drag much longer, but then again, planning accordingly and packing and all those things, that takes time. So we'll take that into account. But
by now you've got some deposit money, right?
Right. So whenever I'm going to verbally confirm and speak with you and get it in writing that we're taking this property off of the market, we're holding it for you. Your holding deposit is a good faith gesture that you want this house. 3 weeks from now, you're going to proceed with this house. Again, same kind of concept as earnest money on a real estate transaction.
Typically, the application process and the approval process, and Nate talked about the people that approve our loans and the underwriting that goes through. Nate, we're about 55% approval and 45% decline. Would that be about right across all of our cities?
Across all of our cities, yes. And then each market can fluctuate. And then again, at the time of the year, that can fluctuate. So, we'll see an influx of applications at different times of the year. Around the holidays, you'll see a different amount, and you'll see a different approval and decline amount. So, I mean, it all changes like the wind, like a lot of things in property management. So we just kind of ride the wave and going up and down with it. But overall, yeah, I mean, we used to say 1 out of 3. I think we've gotten better requirements in place where we've upped that up to where, we filter out people that no longer apply, that we already know the things that will get them turned down or something to that effect. So, but yeah, 55 to 60, and then it varies from there.
One of the questions that I got asked over the years, Nate, and you get to say, what is our retention rate? And I know you know this, how long people stay in our houses. And I know even yesterday you were working on a report for me. What's the longest tenured person in one of our houses? Talk about tenure for a second, will you please?
So our average retention rate has gone over 5 years. And again, with us, we're not your traditional type of management company. It's different because we are embedded with REI Nation, where we're getting new properties that are vacant when we get them. So those numbers kind of, and Kent's going to laugh at this word, they skew my numbers. So every time, he'll say this and that, and your numbers are not looking too hot, I'll say, well, they're skewed because you're giving me new ones. If I just had mine, they look a lot better. But so we're taking new properties, and even with that, even factoring that in, those numbers are in that vacant number that he gave you earlier, 47. Some of those are new properties that we've just now taken on that are sitting alongside those other properties that we've had to move out on or completed a turn. So, but going back to the question, our average retention is over 5 years, and I want to push that even further if we're able to, and we've got a great team in place that handles renewals to assist with that. And I'll tell everybody, any owner that asks, you don't want a move out. The best resident is the one that you already have, within reason, unless there's payment problems or something along those lines. But we've got to do everything that we can to serve that resident, keep them happy, keep them comfortable, so they will stay for a long time. The longer the retention rate, the better for our owners, the better for us, the better for the resident. People don't want to move. They want to stay and be happy and content. So that's a big goal of our team, and they'll tell you, just along with renting houses is the most important job in the company, keeping those houses rented is imperative as well. So,
Hey, I'm gonna ask a question we got over here. We got a few questions that are coming in, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the closing of the lease and then the renewals and some other things. And
okay.
As we wrap this up in the next, we got still plenty of time, but a viewer named John asked, how do you ensure you meet the same high expectations for rehabs and property management across multiple markets, especially when moving into a new market? So Memphis was our first market, and we have about 3,000 plus properties in Memphis, about 1,500 in Dallas, which is our second market, and the rest of the cities are spread out there pretty evenly between Houston and Little Rock, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and St. Louis, although not quite as many in St. Louis, and those markets are all growing. But how do you ensure to meet the same high expectations for rehabs? Let me take that one first. Well, we have rehab team in every market, anywhere from 2 to 5 rehab people in the markets that rehab the properties that we have and prepare the move outs that we have from time to time when we have them. And it all comes back to training of these guys and gals. And we have ladies and gentlemen that do our rehabs. And it comes back to the training, comes back to the inspections that we do on the house. I'm going to do a full session here. In fact, I told Mark Anderson a little while ago, Nate, you heard me tell him that we're going to do a call here coming up on rehabs and move outs because, again, we do these a lot differently than other people do them. And right down and including the quality check. We have a person in each market that's responsible when the rehab is done to go in and do almost identical to a home inspection, because when that resident moves in that house, and I'll talk to you about it in a few minutes again, we want everything to be perfect in that house. And I'll tell you the reason for that in just a second. But how do we ensure the same high expectations? A lot of training, a lot of inspecting what we expect from our vendors and our team, and property management the same way across the city. We have Nate highlights this team over here, and he has 2 or 3 managers that work for him in this city here on whether it's admin or it's rent collection or it's maintenance. He has a team here over in Dallas in our Grapevine office. Missy over there runs our team, and we have probably 8 to 10, 12 people over there, from rental agents to maintenance to collections to admin people that handle that. So Nate has constant training sessions, constant rental meetings with these folks on Zoom now, several times a week, talking about our operation, the expectation, because it is a big job to manage 6,200 plus properties. But fortunately, we have great systems. And that's another whole call about all the systems that we run to keep this bad boy on track here and running. So, but that was a good question. Nate, I got one here from a viewer named Ryan. I'll let you answer this one. What is your average yearly increase, and how have increases impacted retention?
Good question. And so our average increase, it varies by market. Different markets have experienced different increases. You know, Memphis is a slow and steady Freddy, as I like to call it, increase. Dallas, since our inception there at least, has experienced a massive increase. So each market is different. And again, with our renewals, talking about increases and when we're able to do that. So upon renewal, that's one of our goals. We're going to do the same things when setting a rent range for initial marketing of a property. We're doing that same thing upon renewal time. So we're going to look at what our competition is doing. We're going to look at what other properties in that neighborhood are renting for. If a house rented in 2010 in this neighborhood for this amount, and then a house rented in 2020 for a different amount, we're going to take that into account when it comes to trying to get rental increases. But what Ryan asked there, that's extremely important, and this is where, you know, and I understand this, we as a property management team understand, for an owner, the bottom line is the bottom line. And we want you to make as much as possible, but be careful, because if you have a resident in your property that moved in, let's say 6 years ago, they've since then had 2 different renewals, we've increased each time, you got to be careful not to bump, for lack of a better word, you're bumping the rent, you got to be careful not to bump them also out of the property. So what Ryan is asking there, how has that impacted retention? That's a great question. You have to be very careful with that. Again, you want more, we want more for you, but you got to be careful. And again, we've got 2 people to try to make happy here, the owner and then the resident of the property as well. So we're taking all of that into account and trying to increase retention at the same time.
So let me bring it back to the resident. Now we've closed the house and they have the key and they're about to move in, right? So obviously we make sure the house is really clean and the yard is done, and just like we would expect if we were renting a house to move into.
Right.
And one of our rehab project managers goes to the house. We have a gift bag that we put in every house, and I believe there's a letter on there with phone numbers and different things to do whatever they need. And we hope that there's not a maintenance call after they move in, although we do track that. And because the goal is not to have a maintenance call after they move in, because if our quality control people did the right job and did the complete check down and checklist, then that house ought to be perfect, including every light switch working, every light bulb working, the backyard cleaned, everything done, all the stove works, the garbage, on and on and on. We all know the items. So that is what we try to do. Now, upon doing that, also we do a virtual closing, and I think we're doing some of those by Zoom today, of course, where we go through the lease with the resident. We go through the expectations that we have of the resident. We go through what they can expect from us, and including on maintenance calls and paying their rent on time, and that we expect you to pay the rent on time. And we actually ask them at the closing, is there any reason before we start signing these documents that you will not be able to pay your rent on time? Because if there is any hesitation here, even though we've done all the work on them up to this point here, we don't want you to move in if you can't make the payments, because we don't want to put you out. So we ask those questions like that, and we've been really lucky to have great residents that rent our houses. And then that brings me to all right, so we've got them closed and we got them moved in. Mm-hmm. I wanted to talk just for a second about, I want to go to maintenance, and then I want to go to renewals, and then we'll wrap this up, Nate. Okay. So one of the things that we do on maintenance calls is that, and we do get a lot of maintenance calls. And because when you have over 6,000 properties, you have a lot of maintenance calls, and you've been doing it for 17 years. And the goal that we have for a maintenance call is that, Nate, if you call in this afternoon at 2:30 with a maintenance call on your air condition, I've always been the one that I would like to have that fixed today. It's not within 24 hours, and it's not within 3 days. It's today. And our team knows, with our vendor community, to make every effort possible to get that maintenance call taken care of today. And if it means they can't get it done today, but they have to come on Saturday morning, whatever we need to do to satisfy that resident and make their experience great. And we really drilled down on maintenance over the last 3 or 4 years, because it ties directly to renewals. And when we give them a great experience on a maintenance call, now, every maintenance call doesn't mean that it has to be done. And our maintenance department will walk people through a maintenance call. If it's a toilet, or if it's a light switch, or if it's a breaker, or if it's a filter, there's a lot of different reasons that we can walk them through and maybe avoid a maintenance call, which our people are really, really good at doing that. But if there is a maintenance call and we have to dispatch a vendor, and we prefer that to be done within hours, and then the next morning we're following up with a call to the resident to see if he or she is satisfied with the service that they got from the maintenance call. Now, I'm not so sure other companies are doing that, but we are. And it's part of the discipline, and part of what Nate talked about. We're just a different type of company, because customer service, client experience, resident experience, vendor experience, employee experience are all important part of our success. And when we have a happy resident and we get their maintenance situation taken care of, it may cost that owner a few bucks on this end, but we know that most of them are going to renew. And that leads me into the next section of renewals. This is something we started several years ago. If we have a 2-year if we have a 2-year lease, on the 18th month, with 6 months left on the lease, we have a team in our renewal department all across all cities that are calling our resident to start discussing renewing the house and getting a new 2-year lease with a bump in the price, and maybe a bump in the next year. Any kind of bump at this point is really, really good. And we're doing that to a tune of about how many a month, Nate, that we're doing on renewals?
For May, we did 141. For April, we did 176. For March, we did 160.
So let me just remind the viewers here of how powerful that is, what he just said. Because what we did right there is eliminate about 400 move-outs right there. 400 move-outs prevented from happening by being aggressive and on the offense on the front end on renewals. And the renewal process is they sign a new lease. It's not just an addendum. It's a new lease that they sign that now locks them in there for a couple more years. And this, again, when we do some of the things that we do with residents, we do some of the things that we do on maintenance, we follow up quickly, we make that experience better. And then in the back end, it pays off for us by having this renewal. And again, every month that we get 150 or we get 170 renewals, that's 150 or 170 move outs that we're not going to have. And our owners absolutely love that program. And again, I'll just say, I know we got some people on here that are listening to us and may not be clients of ours or whatever, but again, I would ask your property management company why they're not doing that. And maybe they are, maybe you are getting all of this done, but that's a big part of the back end is the maintenance and the renewals. If you do that and you do it great, then you follow up with that resident on that maintenance call to see if he or she is happy. And just that one call alone will give you a lot of credibility and it'll really help your reputation of your company. Because again, most of our competition, and maybe they all do it, Nate, I don't know, but I kind of doubt it. But maybe they are doing it at some. But if they're not, I would certainly suggest that they do it. Or I would certainly suggest that you have a property management company that does it, because that'll ensure you having a resident in that house and getting your return every single month for a long time. Hey, let me look at this question here that we got. When you do have a resident turnover, can you tell us a bit about that process looks like? Is there a ballpark estimate of what the investor costs for typical repairs, painting, etc.? So Nate, I'm gonna jump in on this one if you don't mind, because this is a move out that we have. Typically, we have about $1,000 to $1,500 deposit that's up on the property. Would that be about right, Nate? Average?
Yep. Yes, sir.
Our typical move out, again, one of the things that with success comes some other things. And so when you have a resident that's been in a house for 5, 7, 8 years and moves out, the move out is going to be more costly because there's a lot of wear and tear on that house for all of those years. But if we have a typical move out at 3 or 5 or 7 years, it's about $2,500 to $3,000 minus the deposit that's up there. So it could come out of pocket to the owner about $1,500 to $2,000. But you look at that over a 2, 3, 4 year lease, that's pretty good. Are there some higher? Certainly. There's some houses get trashed. That can certainly happen. But that's typically what that is. So Nate, we've been through the process here. What did we forget on this journey in property management of investor and resident and managing these houses?
I mean, the main thing, and this is, I talk to a lot of owners. Again, our team handles everything and they do a fantastic job. We've got systems and processes in place and all of these checklists to go by and to make sure that all of our I's are dotted and T's are crossed. But property management is a tough business. I don't know if y'all saw when we started. I mean, I've lost plenty of hair over this over the years. It's a tough business. Things don't go right. Things break on the hottest days of the year. ACs break. On the coldest days of the year, the furnace will break. Lightning strikes houses. Trees fall. These things happen, especially to the tune of over 6,000 properties. But then again, you name it, we've probably seen it. Yet we see and hear something new every single day as well. So we've got a fantastic team in place that handles this stuff for our owners. And over the years, we've fine-tuned all of those processes. They're still not perfect. Things don't go perfect. And the day they do is the day that I'll no longer be needed here. and so on and so forth. But it boils down to, the most important thing is renting the house. And that means treating others as you would want to be treated. Take care of issues with urgency. Try to keep everybody happy. It's a very, very tough job. We've got a fantastic team that handles that for our owners. And hopefully our goal is that our owners can lay their head down on their pillow at night and sleep easy, knowing that we've got it under control. And if something happens, we're going to be in touch with them. We're going to communicate. We're going to handle it. And how we respond and how we handle it, I think, is, how we've paved our way through this and made what we've got here in place. That's how we've gained the reputation that we have. Take care of people the way we want to be treated. So,
Nate, final question. If we have any listeners on the call that have other property management and may want to consider possibly changing to us or somebody else, we'll just say us, all right? Because typically we only manage properties that we have sold to investors over the years. And I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, that 99% of our properties are properties that came through our system, that we purchased, that we renovated, that our investors purchased, and we manage it for them today. But we get asked a lot about managing other properties. And I know this year we've opened that door up a little bit. And we've probably taken in maybe about 100 properties in the cities that we're in from other investors that they didn't buy them from us, but they do business with us and they have some other properties that they want us to manage. If somebody on the call was interested in us managing a property, what is that process?
Just reach out to us and let us know. So, and typically, we're in 7 different cities, but that doesn't mean that we're across every single one of those cities and we're in every single area. So in most cities that we operate, we operate in about 50% of those cities. There's some areas where we have no expertise. There's some areas where we don't have any experience in. So I wouldn't want to tell you, yes, if it's in that city, we can handle it, because I wouldn't want to tell you we're an expert at something we're not. So, but just reach out to us and we can go from there. We would check out the property, look and see if it's in one of those areas that we are heavily in, and see if we can be of any assistance for you. And, one thing that I'll tell the majority of owners is we've got high standards. We require our properties to be nice. Our agents, our leasing team, they will tell you that we have the nicest houses in the city. And we're going to hold our owners to that as well, because the results that we've talked about today are what you get when you have high standards. And that's us. We're not the bargain property management. We care a lot about our integrity and reputation and all the above. That's, again, how we've made our name over the years.
Then I'll end it on this, because we haven't talked about fees, but we charge the first month up front of the rent, and we charge 10% a month thereafter. There's a property management agreement with our owners that is good for 30 days. Any owner want out of a property, they don't want us to manage it, 30-day notice, which we usually say you can go anytime you want to, whenever that happens, which very, very rarely does that happen, but it does happen on occasion. People want to go somewhere else. Maybe they got a better fee, but we feel like we bring a lot of value to what we do. And we got a lot of details that we take care of for our owners, whether it's renewals or managing move-outs or managing maintenance. And we feel like that we bring a lot of value. Then obviously on the back end of this thing, Nate, to wrap it all up, once the house is rented, then it goes over to our customer service department, and they take the house then and talk to our owners monthly, calling our owners monthly, talking to them about their rents that are in and the maintenance and what's going on with their property and investment. And that's what our 7 customer service ladies do every month on talking to all of our owners. And that's, again, something that we would do a little different, but that's another whole meeting on itself. So, Nate, any final thoughts?
Not for me. No, sir.
See, I knew if I didn't tell you about this today, you would do great. Okay. I knew you had all of this. You knew all about this stuff. But again, Nate has been with us a long time. He has a great team of people that, like he said, make him look real good. And obviously Nate makes me and Chris and Brett and Sherry and our rest of our executive team look real good because he understands his property management. We're lucky to have him and his team. They do a great job. And to the people on the call, we thank you. We look forward to serving you if we're not today. And again, we ask you to share the conversation or hit the like button, and the video of this call will be up later on today, wherever everybody that didn't see the entirety of it can come back and see it. And on behalf of the Clothier family and REI Nation, we thank you very much for coming on. Nate, you did a great job, and everybody have a nice weekend. Thank you very much.